Governments are no longer denying it. The military are no longer denying it. And even mainstream media no longer denies it. They're here and have been here for a very long time. The Mutual UFO Network has been on the front lines uncovering the truth since 1969. And now we're sharing the truth with you. Welcome to MUFON's What's Up with hosts Katie Grabowski, Christopher DiPerno, and Katie Cook, exclusively on the KGRA Digital Broadcasting Network. Wondering what's up? So are we.
What's up? It is Thursday night, and you are listening to MUFON What's Up Radio, the show that says discovery starts with curiosity, and curiosity starts with MUFON. I am your host, and already in my comfy slippers for the night, Katie Grabowski, Colorado State Director. We have got a great show for you tonight. We have Dr. Michael Masters. So amazing, his information. I'm looking so forward to this show. I'm glad you all are here with us tonight. I hope you're all having a great week. So we are always endorsed by MUFON, the Mutual UFO Network, who always ask that all-important question, are we alone in the universe? We are also, be sure to check out kgradb.com. Sign up. There's so many great podcasts and radio shows to listen to. It just keeps you busy for hours. I always like tuning it in at night and laying there and listening to great shows. So check out kgradb.com. I would like to introduce my co-hosts. First, we have Katie Cook. She is known and is a star of country music television and has been investigating the UFO and paranormal now for several years. Welcome, Katie.
Yeah, pretty much a lifelong interest for me. I always say I didn't pick ufology, it picked me. So, and I'm so excited about the show tonight. I'm really excited to talk to Dr. Masters. I have like 3 pages of questions. I've been geeking out pretty hard on this one.
Right. I love when you get into time travel and all that, it's just like, woo, we could talk for hours on that. Also, I'd like to introduce the New York State Director and ERT member, Christopher DiPerno. Welcome, Chris.
Hey, welcome everybody. Man, what a great show. Dr. Michael Masters on. Going to be talking about, I wonder if you can go back in time, like buy a bunch of IBM stock and then go back and become a billionaire. I got to ask him that. But anyways, yeah, it's a little scary, this time travel theory stuff. I'm very excited about listening to him tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. For sure. For sure. Yeah. Just real quick, a couple quick little announcements before we get rolling. A couple things. I wanted to announce that the UFO MegaCon has been postponed. And I wanted to also put on there that there is a new event. They actually asked a few speakers that were going to present at UFO Mega to come over to the Sedona Ascension Retreat, which is during the spring equinox. It's March 18th to the 21st. I'm super excited to be speaking there along with so many other great names and faces. So that should be a great weekend. And if you get your tickets and use the code Katie10, you get 10% off your ticket. So that's pretty exciting. I'm looking forward to doing that. Also, a couple of days ago, we got some very sad news in our UFO community. Clifford Mahooty, there he is. I actually got to meet him at a few different conferences through the years. And is such a great, gentle, wise soul and so funny and so fun. And I know he was so beloved by so many in the community, and he passed away unexpectedly, sadly. Clifford, he was on Ancient Aliens. He was a Zuni elder, and just very sad news. Just, another great one gone. It just feels like we're getting gut punched left and right. So it's very sad.
Yes, it's been a tough year for losses for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, let's cheer us up, Katie. And what do you have to kick us off tonight?
Yes, I'm always trying to cheer you up right at the front of the show. We've got a couple fun memes for you, kind of on the time travel theme. So this first one, for anyone just listening, it says, me. So Elon made it to Mars. Time traveler. Do you mean Elon the Emperor? The first or second? Me. What? And then there's another one here that I thought was really cute. Me. I'm into dinosaurs and really like Jurassic Park. Time traveler. The movies or the actual park? Hey, you never know. You never ever know. And of course, I always love to show you guys a paranormal pop of the week. And you remember last week I showed you this pop where the alien had like planets behind him. Well, if you look closely, this is the Valentine version. How cute is that?
Oh.
I have another Valentine's one here. This might be my favorite. Oh my gosh. Can you see
I like that.
a little pink saucer? Look, a little pink saucer girl.
I
She's
like
so
that.
cute. That's a white chocolate mint. And so there's time to get these in time for Valentine's Day. So you know what to do. Go to paranormalpops.com and place an order. And also, I showed you guys some stained glass the last couple weeks. Well, these are really cool this week. Same place, Renfro Originals. Look at this green alien head. I love that one so much.
Oh, that's cool.
And yes, of course, you can follow her on socials at Renfro Originals. There's also a blue alien head, which I also just love that one. And yeah, they're made right here by hand in Middle Tennessee, and you can order them at renfrooriginals.com. So definitely check those out. Really cool gifts.
I love
All right.
that. I think I want to put that right in front of my picture window so the neighbors can see what I'm up to.
There you go. Maybe leave you alone. They'd be like,
Yeah.
that's kind of weird. I love
Yeah,
them.
I do too. I'd have to go for the blue one because when I first got into this, I was looking around like, where are the blue aliens? Where are the blue aliens? So that
I
blue
know.
one, those
And
are
it's
my-
surprising how much alien stuff isn't even gray. And we're always talking about the grays. And yeah, and look, I've got all green stuff behind me. I know it's the whole little green man thing, I guess, kind of silly, but it's cute too. I like it. All right, Chris, what's going on in news this week?
Well, Amanda, you want to? All right, our first headline, and I'm telling you, this is getting crazy out here. The world's first nuclear power fighter jet could fly for 15 years without landing. Personally, I don't know how you're going to take a bathroom break if you go 15 years, but let the Air Force and the Navy figure that out. Could the United States be announcing to the outside world that the latest TR-3B nuclear power anti-gravity Delta aircraft, that's a mouthful, is real? This aircraft is both a ghost and has been called an alien UFO by witnesses. Is it ours or is it theirs? The TR-3B is not fiction from what people say and was built with technology available since the mid-1980s or earlier. The triangular-shaped nuclear-powered aerospace platform was developed under the Aurora program with SDI and black budget monies. The Aurora program is a top-secret development program for advanced aerospace vehicles and has been responsible for development of the hypersonic strategic reconnaissance, the SR-75 penetrator, and replaced the SR-71 spy plane. And of course, they got this one, the SR-74 Scram. Now, people have seen that donut-shaped exhaust coming out. That is believed to be the SR-74 Scram. The Tactical Reconnaissance TR-3B's first operational flight was in the early 1990s, I guess. Technology developed from reverse engineering of recovered alien artifacts that used in the TR-3B at least $3 billion plus the TR-3Bs were flying by 1994. Hey, that's where your government money's going to, flying. The TR-3B's vehicle outer coating is reactive to electrical stimulation and can change color, reflectiveness, radar absorptiveness. Now, this does make sense. As crazy as it sounds, it all makes sense. This making the vehicle look like a small aircraft or a flying cylinder, even tricking radar receivers into falsely detecting a variety of aircraft. No aircraft or several aircraft, you name it, they say they got it. Now, before you say, Chris, you've been fooled, you're crazy, here's a picture of a U.S. Navy patent anti-gravity. Now, I'm not really convinced on this, but I did look at the patent office, and they do have hydrogen propulsion, electromagnetic patents. People have actually have stuff for anti-gravity. Now, whether this TR-3B is in the patent office, I'll let you guys decide. Here's a picture of it that was created, the nuclear-powered anti-aircraft. And I guess for all stages, is now becoming pretty practical. For decades, it has been regarded as a UFO by witnesses all over the world. It can fly outside the atmosphere, reach any area in the Earth in 10 to 30 minutes. The cockpit is plasma acceleration ring of the magnetic field interrupter. Now, we do know that there's such a thing as hydrogen plasma and can be accelerated by a magnetic energy field. which is currently the most modern technology of mankind. Is it ours or is it then? Amanda, will you roll that video, please?
This is the video that you've been waiting for. The one aircraft everyone has witnessed, from Air Force to stargazers to historians and aviation buffs. Triangle in shape, this spy plane design seems like something out of a science fiction novel. It can perform incredibly high G turns, undetectable on radar, and was developed from top secret Nazi research captured from World War II. And believe it or not, it would use an engine system that can only be described as anti-gravity magic. Prepare yourself for an impossible video on an impossible aircraft, the anti-gravity TR-3B Black Manta. Dived and dug deep and put together another instance of a mystery plane that the US military refuses to acknowledge, and which, for all intents and purposes, simply doesn't exist. You know, so the question that is on your lips, what is meant by anti-gravity? In the case of the TR-3B Black Manta, it means a craft that uses highly pressurized mercury accelerated by nuclear energy. So the plasma is produced, which in turn creates a field of anti-gravity around the craft. It has an electromagnetic coil at the heart of its motive power system, the result of which is electromagnetic drive that interacts with the Higgs-Boson field at the quantum level. Heady stuff indeed, and definitely something that is probably not common knowledge, or even really provable at this point. There have also been a slew of confirmed peer-reviewed research studies regarding anti-gravity technology spanning some 60 years, conducted and published by respected agencies such as NASA, the American Institute of Physics, and the American Institute of Aeronautics and Astronautics, as well as the Air Force Research Laboratory. It is the culmination of theories regarding gravitation, quantum gravity, and general relativity, the latter as first put forward by Albert Einstein himself. Anti-gravity is of such huge interest to the military and scientists alike, given that, for example, one could hypothetically reduce an aircraft's mass by using electromagnetic propulsion even down to zero.
Now, I got to tell you, that's really Star Wars stuff. But here's the thing. I got an article sent to me by military.com from my friend in Florida who worked with the U.S. Air Force and said, Chris, I'm telling you this thing is real. And I says, okay, show me. And here's what he shows me. Well, I can tell you this. If you want to know more about it, check out military.com. They got a great article about the TR-3B. And if that website is now putting it out there that it's unofficial, covert type of program that's going on, we got to start looking at it. You decide. All right. So our next story.
Wow.
This gets even crazier. Alien invaders could turn asteroids into city-destroying bombs before bleeding the Earth dry, Professor Wiley claims. Asteroids and viruses could be weaponized by invading aliens hell-bent on colonizing the Earth to bleed the planet dry of its natural resources. Now, once again, Chris, you lost your mind. This story comes from Professor Paul Springer from the U.S. Air Command and Staff College in Alabama. He spoke about a theoretical extraterrestrial attack. The experts who specialize in the changing face of war said it's most likely probes will be sent ahead of the invaders from beyond our solar system to scope out the Earth. Renewed interest in UFOs have surged since the publication of the Pentagon report in June that saw the U.S. admit for the first time there is something in the skies that cannot be explained. The Congress, the Senate, have now all voted through a plan for a newly dedicated UFO office, which we have reported on, to investigate this phenomenon. Should aliens invade, Professor Springer believes they would colonize the planet and bleed it dry of our resources. Yeah, good luck with that. Professor Springer explained that you have assumed any civilization is acting in what it perceives to be in its own best interest. Earth's nuclear weapons would be eliminated with lasers and improvised weapons such as asteroids-guided targets, as revealed by a group of former nuclear base commanders who claimed their nukes were disabled by UFOs back in the 60s and the 70s. Professor Springer said that this would be a likely scenario that would happen during an alien invasion. Professor Springer said, if I wanted to take down a civilization, I would want to shut them down and make sure that they knew I shut them down. Other weapons used could be a tailor-made virus that just wipes out the human population, leaving Earth, COVID, leaving Earth ready to be picked clean. All right, Amanda, let's roll that video.
Alien invaders can turn asteroids into bombs that destroy cities and then dry up the Earth, the professor said. Asteroids and viruses could be weaponized by invading aliens hellbent on colonizing Earth to bleed the planet dry of its resources. According to a wild new theory, Professor Paul Springer, from the U.S. Air Command and Staff College in Alabama, spoke to Sun Online about a theoretical extraterrestrial attack. The expert, who specializes in the changing face of war, said it's likely probes would be sent ahead of the invaders from beyond our solar system to scope out Earth, and the Congress and Senate have now voted through a plan for a new dedicated UFO office to probe the phenomena. As revealed by the Sun Online in October, a group of former nuclear base commanders claimed their nukes were disabled by UFOs. They would be hoping that humans will recognize when they are beaten and accept the status quo.
I don't know about you, but if this ever comes true, I'm buying a very comfortable lawn chair and 10 gallons of vanilla caramel ice cream, and I'm just going to sit outside and watch the show. Cookie?
Oh my God. Well, Jupiter.
Well, what are you going to do?
She likes the stories we're dealing with here. Oh gosh. Where do I start? Because I kind of want to go back and talk about the triangle stuff too. There's so much here.
Go for it.
Let's start with the whole idea, the professor saying would be, colonized and bled dry and all that kind of stuff. I don't know. I don't totally agree with the idea that all aliens are wonderful and love us just because they're more advanced. But I also kind of think, I think they've been visiting us for such a long time that if they wanted to do that, they just would have done that already. That's just sort of how it feels in my gut. And then going back to the triangle stuff, I mean, this is a polarizing topic. There's some people in the community who are like, don't even go there, but I think it's important for us to talk about this kind of thing because we have to remind our viewers and ourselves that, a lot of triangles are being seen, and we probably have something that looks a lot like that. Now, are we as far advanced as that video suggested in our own military? I don't know. But we do know for sure that whatever they say we have, we've probably had it for a very, very long time by the time they admit that we have it. So I think it's wrong of us to also assume that we know exactly how far along we are with those kind of craft. And why wouldn't we be messing with anti-gravity? I mean, why would we not be, looking into that? And then is it just me, or did that one triangle video that you showed at the end look a lot like a flying grilled cheese until it separated? I was like getting hungry. I was like,
what I was explained, that's great. Yeah, I'm kind of hungry now too. But he explained to me as he sent me the video, David Toombs, who worked with the Air Force and is a pilot and knows everything about this stuff. He actually explained that is a standard Air Force type of flight pattern. That's how military planes would fly, and of course they're doing different techniques from it. So I actually checked with somebody else who would know about flight and how military flights are, because I'm not a pilot. I'm never been in the cockpit of a plane. And he says, oh, no, absolutely, Chris. That is absolutely how it would probably be done. So I don't know. I'm going to let the listeners decide. But like I said, check out military.com because they have an amazing article. And that's not some crazy website.
Right. I agree with you, Katie. I mean, it's a TR3B is a topic of debate. And, a few researchers that I spoke to said you could trace it back to Edgar Fauci in that it's a myth. But at the same time, my husband witnessed a triangular shaped craft go over our house one night, and I missed it. Of course, I had just gone in from our back patio and missed it. I actually had him report it to MUFON, which was interesting. And, that's just, secret military triangle. But I'm like, we don't know either way. We don't know if it's ours or theirs, and it gets convoluted. And there's just so many theories as to how far advanced we are. But there's no doubt whatsoever that, of course, our government is interested in that anti-gravitational propulsion systems for sure. But gosh, my dyslexia is like getting the worst of me today. I'm KGRA. Sorry.
we do know that we were playing with stealth back in the 80s. So, I mean, James Goodall, who is an absolute military historian that's right on the button, he's worked with all these top secret projects, has explained about the triangle crafts that we've been working on that. We do know that hydrogen propulsion, magnetic hydrogen propulsion, is actually a fact that we can actually do it. And some labs at colleges have actually shown small anti-gravity demonstrations. I mean, nothing big, but they actually have proved that they can disrupt gravity. So if they can do it at college, if James Goodall is saying it, Bob Lazar was saying back years ago they were playing with this stuff. Sometimes myths are actually formed from the truth.
Facts. That is absolutely true.
Yeah.
Absolutely true. And as far as the alien invasion, real quick, I'm on Katie's team on that. As far as if they would have wanted to wipe us out, they would have done it a long time ago. But maybe we're getting to a point where they're like, we've given them chance after chance after chance to get their stuff together. We're done. So who knows?
Well, and of course, we'll be hearing a whole other theory about all of this from our guest in just a little while, too. So
that's true.
Well,
that is
the last thing I want to say about the alien invasion stuff, we do know there's been reports that they've been sucking up water. Water has a component in it, hydrogen. And so I'm just wondering, as David Toombs says, they were sucking up stuff from the sun. They were sucking up water. Are they using our resources, place as a pit stop at a gas station? So you always got to keep these little theories in mind and say, got to think outside the box, not always nuts and bolts.
Let's send them all of our hot dogs. They'll leave us alone real fast.
Jesus, ain't that the truth?
Well, hey, let's have a little fun. We've got a minute. You guys want another edition of Flying Unidentified Flying Celebrities?
Let's do the Flying Celebrities.
All right, Amanda. Time for this week's Unidentified Flying Celebrities. In an interview with Interview Magazine, Miley Cyrus described seeing a UFO, saying, quote, "The best way to describe it is a flying snowplow. It had this big plow in the front of it, and it was glowing yellow. My friend saw it too," end quote. She went on to say she saw a being sitting in front of the flying object, and they even made eye contact. Kurt Russell revealed on the Jimmy Kimmel Show that he witnessed what is possibly now known as the Phoenix Lights, saying, quote, "I was flying and there were these banks of lights in the shape of a triangle right near the airport. Years later, I come home and Goldie is watching this show on UFOs, and the most reported one of all time was this one in Phoenix. I start to see the show and I say, wait a minute, that's the night I was landing in Phoenix." Singer Kesha said during an appearance on the Zach Sang Show, "I look up in the sky and there's a bunch of spaceships. I swear to God, there were like 5 to 7, and I don't know why I didn't try to take a picture of it. I just looked at it, and I was like, those are aliens." That's your latest Unidentified Flying Celebrities.
I love Goldie Hawn.
I love it.
Oh my gosh, love it.
I think Goldie Hawn's an alien. She doesn't age. She's
she's beautiful.
Amazing.
That's true.
I love the thing about Kurt Russell because, when these celebrities come out like that, people really listen to them, and they're actually more and more coming out, saying, well, I did have an encounter. I did see something flying in the sky that I can't explain.
Yeah.
And the more people come out like that, the more credible this whole ufology thing becomes more reality to it.
That's true.
Amen.
Yep. And I've never heard of that description, the very first one, the bulldozer type thing. That was interesting.
I know. I immediately thought Chris needs one of those to land near him pretty soon, I think.
Yeah. I you know what? I got to tell you something. I hate snow. So if my wife ever decides to move again, I'm going to Arizona where there is no snow in the desert. I can't.
Yeah.
I want the desert, please.
Yeah, you know what? I'll join you out there. I'm totally with you on that. All right, Katie G, do you have a case of the week for us?
I do. And I've kind of been going with the theme of our guest every week lately. It's kind of been a fun way for me to dive into CMS. So in honor of Michael Masters this week, I thought we'd do kind of an ERT alien type case. This one happens to be case 876. Our very own Earl Gray Anderson, investigator, state director, and ERT member out of California, did this case. It was changed from a Category 3 to a Category 2 case. It's from Huntington Beach, California. It occurred October 16th, 2016 at 3 a.m. And I'm just going to read real quick what the witness said. She said, and I like this case also because there's so many little things in her disposition here that really make sense to me. So I actually think I've been getting abducted my whole life. I am 23 years old and things started getting weird when I was about 7. That's an age you often hear. They always happened in different ways when I'm sleeping or laying in bed or driving in a car. This past time I was sleeping and I thought it was a dream. Again, something we hear often, whether it was a dream or a memory. But waking up, I was so panicked, I'm pretty sure it wasn't. I knew right away they weren't human because they had cricket faces with these tall, muscular bodies and strange jumpsuits. The only way I could describe them was these metallic light rose gold, almost leather type material, but it wasn't. That right there for investigators is really cool because the witness is trying to make sense of what she saw and what she's familiar with, but it quite doesn't match what she saw. It was something so foreign to her. So I love that description that she put right there. So with an assortment of zippers and buttons, but they just looked like they were, but they weren't from this earth. I was walking down a dirt road and they were still talking among themselves, but I didn't have enough time to run. So I just laid myself down like a rug and buried my face in the dirt. I was so terrified and confused. I just wanted to disappear. They just walked up to me and one crouched over me, and then I blacked out. I seemed to have these 2 perfectly round scoop marks that appeared on my back right calf. I have encountered lost time, sleep paralysis, encountered lights in the skies, humming noises, sleep problems, medical problems, crazy electronic malfunctions, and a couple other symptoms. I have always had incredible intuition too, which seems to be connected with my abductions. And strangest of all, my boyfriend and I were almost completely sure I was pregnant 3 separate times. I had all the signs, symptoms, and belly, but then overnight I wasn't anymore. Super sad. So commonly reported. I think so many things she touched on in this case are so common with abductees. So, and the scoop marks were really interesting to me as well. There's a photo up there for you guys to see. This case was closed as information only. So that's my case of the week.
That's an incredible case. Wow.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Katie.
Well, first of all, that's really sad. She's been through a lot that I know has been extremely unpleasant for her. And I really feel for her. That's a lot in one lifetime for anybody to go through. And I really, when you said, it really stands out to an investigator, when something's so foreign that the person has trouble explaining it. I mean, we have to assume when we're dealing with whatever these entities are and whatever happens during a contact or abduction event, that we might be seeing something that our brains really cannot process. And so I think that's a big part of this puzzle is that human perception, like you can try to describe a material or a color, but what if it's something you've literally never seen with your human eyes before? That's, I think, part of the confusion that goes along with all of this.
I agree.
I think what you have to look at is what's being implanted into you as far as screen memory and everything else with these abduction cases. It sounds very much like a typical abduction case. You have the scoop marks. For people who don't know what a scoop mark is, the scoop mark is like almost like a little crater or valley that appears overnight, and there's no scar to it. There's no way that anybody knows how this person got a cut or how this meat of your body was actually taken out. So we don't know how that sample is. Doctors have looked at scoop marks. People have looked at scoop marks and said, hey, I've never been, scratched there or cut there, never had any scar there. And now all of a sudden I got a little indentation in there that looks like something was taken out of me.
Yeah.
The implanted dreams are very important because maybe they're trying to send us a message. I had several people who've been abducted who said, Chris, I've never dreamt about this before, and now all of a sudden I'm dreaming about, certain things. One of the things that I see are nuclear war. They are sometimes implanted with these dreams of nuclear holocaust. So, I mean, are they trying to send us a message with the abduction people?
I don't know.
Interesting case for sure. Hey,
Yeah.
Chris, did you get in touch with Bob Sparing this week?
I did. And of course, the director of international investigations always comes up with a great one. Amanda, would you roll that tape?
Hi, everybody. My name is Bob Spearing. I am MUFON's Director of Investigations on the international side, and I'd like to bring you a case today that's so international, it's actually on Mars. And since nobody has told me otherwise, I would think that since I take care of everything outside the United States, that might include Mars sometimes. So I have a case from a girl named Natalie, case 120257. And as you know, many people like to look through the NASA website for photos that may show anomalies on Mars and on the moon. And there's been some strange things over the years that have been seen on Mars. Lights issuing from the surface, lights drifting across the sky, a person sitting on a rock that they claim is only really this big, and it's just a rock formation that pareidolia, a person's ability to think that it's something else. And there's lots of things that go on Mars. Natalie captured something from the NASA website, and we're going to post her screenshot from the website right now, photo number 1. Chris? This is right off the Perseverance rover website, and you can see that the rover is taking a picture of a barren landscape. But if you look way up to the right-hand corner, you'll see a tiny black dot. And we're going to zoom in on that next with picture number 2, Chris, if you will. This is not a photo anomaly. This is not a blemish. This is actually something in the air over the surface of Mars. Now, many conspiracy theorists will say that the rovers never went to Mars. It's actually Prince Edward Island in eastern Canada, up near Newfoundland. I believe the rover's on Mars, but I don't know how you would classify all of these objects that keep being seen in the air over Mars if Mars is a dead planet. Mars can have incredibly strong windstorms, but that doesn't seem to be the case here. So the question we have to ask in this case is, what was that black orb-like object captured in that photograph? Was it floating? Was it flying? We don't know. It couldn't have been going very fast because we don't see a blur. It's a fairly crisp picture of a spherical object. So we're probably going to close this case out as anomalous, unidentified. We don't know what it is. So that's it, Chris, for this week. I appreciate you having me on, and hopefully I get to see you next week. Take care.
Wow.
Wow.
Thanks, Bob. That's a cool
Things flying
shot
around
right there.
Mars. Isn't that incredible?
Wow.
Yep.
Hey,
I don't-
Cookie, you just went to visit Deb Jordan for your birthday.
I
She's going to be a
did.
guest in a few weeks. You know,
Yes.
what, you guys did a little blue spending or something?
You mean spoon bending?
Yeah, that whatever you do to bend that piece of silver.
So yeah, before we get Michael on here, I just thought we could have a little fun talking about this. So I have been trying to bend spoons. I'm no Uri Geller, but but I am trying, and I've got quite a few that I've gotten really good at. Now I was talking back and forth with a friend of mine. Have you ever used the Marco Polo app? It's really cool. It's where you can send these videos back and forth. And my friend and I here in town, we're always sending Marco Polos back and forth. And she's like, what are you up to? And I was like, I'm trying to bend spoons. So she got some spoons out. She was really having a hard time with it. They were just way too tough. And she challenged me to try and do one on video to send to her. And I was like, I can't just do this on demand. I'm not even very good at it yet. But then, we were going back and forth videoing. And I thought, oh, what the heck? I'll try one. So anyway, here's a couple really quick videos of me trying to bend a spoon. So when you bend spoons, they're no longer good to play. So you have a couple tough spoons too. So see if you, and I don't do any of this like rubbing to try and make it hot, because that might make it, well, still doesn't make it bend. But picture, if you want to do this, just picture so much love or whatever. Do whatever works for you. It's different for everybody, I guess. But yeah, see if you can just think about it for a little while, and then see if you get that message that it's time to go, and see if it'll work. All right, I'm going to go watch a movie with Daisy. I don't have many of these spoons left. I'm going to just give myself a minute. You may not want to watch this because it might just take forever and it might not work, but I'm going to see if I can bend this one. So that one went like that again. And it gets hard again right after. It's fun. So that's
so got to try that. Holy cow.
That's this one. And I'm telling you, like, I cannot, like, it really, like, I'm hurting my hands trying. Once it hardens back up again, it won't go. It's really fun. The spoon part, like this part bent really easy, that little part right there. But this stalk is like super tough. So I do think there's something to it. I don't know. Maybe you're just psyching yourself up. And it's not like I can just do it with my brain. I still have to move my hands to get it to go. But
can you bend other items? I just tried my pen and it didn't work.
That's probably dangerous. I don't know if you want to do that. But I'm going to keep trying. And at some point in the future, I maybe will have the courage to try it on the show. We'll see.
Wow. Yeah, I'd like to see that. Has you ever seen anybody do it with just their mind? I mean, hold the spoon and like the spoon just kind of flops down and stuff?
I haven't seen that in person. No.
Hey, can it be done?
I think so. I mean, I think in theory, but I'm definitely not there yet. But I'm gonna keep working on it.
Oh, that would freak me out. I'd be out of that house so fast. That's one way of getting rid of unwanted company.
It's gonna happen
in front of them.
Future episode. Look at it. It's gonna happen.
Speaking of the future, that would be a really good time to bring on our guest.
I see what you did there.
So it is now time, Amanda, for all right. Our guest of the week this week, Dr. Michael P. Masters, is a professor of biological anthropology at Montana Tech in Butte, Montana. He received a PhD in anthropology from The Ohio State University in 2009, where he specialized in hominin, evolutionary anatomy, archaeology, and biomedicine. Over the years, Dr. Masters has developed a broad academic background in which he began studying physics and astronomy at Ohio University in Athens, Ohio, with further undergraduate and graduate coursework in astrobiology, statistics, astronomy, and physics, as well as a perennial review of developments in modern physics regarding time and time travel. Collectively, Dr. Masters' background, education, and current research program combine to offer a unique perspective and a novel approach to addressing unanswered questions pertaining to a widely recognized yet poorly understood aspect of modern global culture. His book, Identified Flying Objects, a multidisciplinary scientific approach to the UFO phenomenon, challenges readers to consider new possibilities while cultivating conversations about our ever-evolving understanding of time and time travel. Please welcome Dr. Michael Masters to the show. Welcome.
Thanks, Katie. Good to see you again.
Yeah, it's
Hello,
good
everyone.
to see you again.
Hello, Doctor.
Hello.
Oh my goodness. So I guess I would like to start. Michael and I, we got to hang out at the UFO Fest in Oregon just a few, I guess it's been several months ago now. So it was really great.
It feels
to meet
like a
you
few
and
weeks,
hang out.
but
Yeah, it does.
yeah.
That was just a really great time. Amanda, I think I have a picture of that. There we are with
There we
Heidi
are.
Hollis. That was a great time. You know,
Yeah, it
even
was.
with the shutdown and everything, they didn't have the parade or whatever, but it was a great town. I guess I'd just like to kick off in, just kind of how we kind of start with a lot of our guesses. What got you interested in this phenomenon to begin with,
Yeah, it was mostly because I overheard my father telling some friends a story about a UFO encounter he had. I'm originally from Northeast Ohio, and he was a veterinarian working in Amish country, and was out with a colleague, so it was a multiple witness case, and came over a hill, and there was this classic glowing orb across the horizon. And being an Amish country, there's not a lot of lights at all, so it definitely stood out as something strange, but it got way weirder when it darted toward their truck, stopped, hovered just about 100 meters away, shot back across the horizon, and then instantly shot up into the sky. So, it's your classic nighttime UFO sort of encounter. And he eventually got Whitley Strieber's book Communion, and my own origin story started with that when I was 8 years old, and looked up and saw it on the living room shelf, and had this kind of mental image of an early hominin form or a chimpanzee-like form, a modern human, and then that quintessential gray alien from the book cover. And just started wondering if there could be a connection there, if we're possibly related in the sense that they're just the continuation of our own evolution into the future.
Oh, wow. What year was that sighting that your dad had?
It was before I was born, so I'm guessing it was probably the mid 70s sometime, late 70s.
That's what I was thinking. My favorite decade. Yeah, that's really, really cool.
Yeah,
okay.
I interviewed him about it later in college when I started to look into this more, and the story he told me was the same as I remembered hearing it as a child. So I definitely believe him.
Well, Dr. Masters, I have a question, because you are uniquely poised to answer all of these questions that we're going to have today, with your background and studying anthropology and everything. You talk a lot in the book about how our brains, they have continued to grow. So let's just start there. I think that's a really good kind of simple place to start, and how if these beings, what you suggest in your book is that they really are us from the future coming back, and we'll get into all of that, why they might be coming back, how they're coming back. But let's just start with trying to visualize how we could become them, and if we can approach that from, the physical point first.
Yeah, if we can take seriously these many, many reports of close encounters that involve these beings, obviously there's a lot of variation among them. You have the mantid insect-like reptoids, but those tend to be a pretty small percentage of the overall sightings. The most of them, at least according to the Dr. Edgar Mitchell Free study that surveyed over 4,000 abductees and contactees, the most commonly described form is human, just like us. And then you have, after that, the short grays and the tall grays, and then only 5% were these actual non-human forms. I basically focus on on that aspect of our human evolution, where the most dominant trends are an increase in brain size and, importantly, reorganization of the brain. Our parietal lobes in the back expanded mediolaterally. Our frontal lobe moved anterior out over top of our eyes. And in fact, we're the only mammal with that craniofacial configuration where our brain sits right on top of our eyes. Our faces shrunk back. Our teeth got smaller. Our masticatory musculature, which we used for chewing food, got smaller. So you have this trade-off of the brain and face. And if those same trends continue as they have and actually accelerated over the last 6 to 8 million years, we're likely to look very similar to what is most often described in these ones that I argue are from our more distant future. The humans could be coming back from right now. If we have that technology, we could be visiting the past at any point. And the humans that are described that look so much like us would indicate that it's not going to be very long before we do develop that technological ability. But the short grays, the tall grays, I think are from a more distant point in our evolutionary future, possibly 8 to 15,000 years, maybe more. So yeah, regardless of where we live, if we live on the moon, in space, whatever, these same trends have continued throughout the last 6 to 8 million years. And there's really no reason to assume they wouldn't continue into the deep future as well.
Dr. Masters, you brought up something. I was going to ask you another question, but I'll save that a little later. But now that you said that, different species are being seen. Let's say that the Nordics are actually us of the future, developed that way, and we produce the grays. Is that a possibility? I mean, is there a possibility that we can produce that type of stuff? Is there? I mean, they kind of are organic, from what I understand.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely appear to be. There are cases that involve robots or AI. The Pascagoula case is a good example. But yeah, seemingly these short grays especially appear to be biological entities, and because they're upright walking, they are most commonly described with 5 digits on each hand, what's called pentadactyly, a characteristic of tetrapods that goes back about 400 million years into the past here on Earth. Bilateral symmetry, a similar craniofacial configuration that we have, and just larger heads, smaller faces, more childlike traits, which I talk about in the book a lot in the context of paedomorphosis, and this trend toward the retention of juvenilized traits into adulthood. It's possible that they are manipulated, made. I don't know. It's really hard to say. It gets a little speculative to claim that we start doing genetic engineering or something to create this other breed. In my opinion, it's just a product of time itself, that the Nordics are probably from a more proximate period closer to us here in this time. And then these grays, especially the tall grays with their very large eyes, their adept control of consciousness and telepathy, seem to be from a very distant point in our future, just based on their form and their intellect. So I don't know. I refer to it as temporal ancestry, in the same way that we have ancestral groups now from sub-Saharan Africa, Native Americans, East Asians, and so on. We could be seeing that same thing in the future, where we have people from East Asia who are coming back in time, or people from the northern parts of Europe with the Nordics, for instance, who are coming back in time, and they retain those racial characteristics. Or it could be people coming from different time periods who are ambassadors of that particular period in our future, and have a physiological form that's consistent with the time they're coming back from.
Wow. Yeah, that's a fascinating topic. Because you often hear in reports and from witnesses and that there seems to be these taller grays, and then the more mechanical grays. So maybe some are more sentient, and some are more AI type beings. But you mentioned the bipedal kind of thing. I mean, it's very uncommon to get reports of ETs or beings that have, they're usually on 2 legs and upright. We don't get like 6-legged creatures or 8-legged creatures like a spider. Can you kind of speak about how rare it is to be bipedal?
Absolutely. And in fact, I've said many times before that if they were described as having 6 legs, or, like jellyfish or squids or spiders or something, I never would have became interested in this. But it was that seemingly the similarities, the phylogenetic relationship that appeared to exist. And bipedalism is one of the best indicators of that. It's actually the trait that defines our lineage as hominins, is that 6 to 8 million years ago, we stood up, started walking on 2 legs, and all of these other changes were associated with that. Most importantly, being able to use our hands for culture and technology, and our brains evolved alongside. So yeah, if they had more legs, if they walked differently, if they didn't look anything like us, I wouldn't be involved in this at all. But it just seemed to be such a glaring resemblance that I thought it was worth investigating farther. And the more I learned about hominin evolution and focusing on craniofacial evolution specifically, the more it really seemed like that's just the direction we're going. And it's probably not something that's going to change. But yeah, with the AI, it's possible some of the grays are. We would expect the same way we do now when making robots that we make them look like us. So if they had those same characteristics, it could be an aspect of the way we built them, if they are sort of the worker bees of the future. But again, many do sort of see them as being more biological. It could be both, I guess, as well.
I have a question, talking about characteristics. I'm looking at young people today, and I'm seeing how many young people are saying, I don't know if I ever want to have kids. I have so many friends who have decided they don't want to have children. It's so different than it was, even when I was younger. And I look at how sexuality in humans is becoming a lot more fluid. And I'm wondering what our reproduction could look like thousands of years in the future, if it might not be a lot more lab-based to even just keep us going. And I wonder how that over time could change who we are. When you think about who we are as humans, that we're so flesh and blood and primal, our instinct for fight or flight, just sex for reproduction, birth, the process of birth, nursing, holding babies, all the things that are just so physical about us. I guess I'm just wondering, you take thousands of years slowly changing us. I think if you even just remove jealousy from humans, like how different we would operate, so I'm just wondering, like, how much does that factor in when you're thinking about where we could go in the future? It might explain why they seem so just sort of robotic and worker bee. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I talk about that a lot in my new book, probably 3 or 4 different times throughout the book. This aspect of these trends that we see now, especially with regard to reproduction, fertility programs that we have, we're losing our ability to reproduce even beyond that personal choice, where a lot of people choose not to have children. I have a lot of friends as well who got vasectomies in their 30s. They just made that decision early on. But yeah, if that continues into the future, we've seen over the last 40 years, upwards of a 50% reduction in sperm counts in males throughout the Western world, which is largely tied to pollutants in our environment. If it becomes harder to make babies, we're going to have to take a lab approach to that. And honestly, like a lot of these abduction accounts and ones where people were up in these massive triangular crafts specifically, they report seeing these walls of incubating fetuses. Terry Lovelace describes this very well in his book, Incident at Devil's Den, where it's not only the walls of incubating human-like fetuses, but also these rooms where people are being stripped naked and going in and arguably having the semen and the eggs removed, which is so common throughout these instances of close encounters and abductions. Specifically, he claims it happened to him. Almost every account I've seen, it involves that process. So what I argue in my first book is that they're coming back to get novel gene variants. Another trend associated with the recent past is an amalgamation of our genome. We used to have these isolated populations, and we would have new gene variants come in and mix them around. It's an important aspect of the process of evolution in general, along with gene drift, mutation, gene flow, and natural selection, obviously. But that gene flow is disappearing. We're now becoming one interbreeding population on this island of Earth, essentially. So over time, that could lead to incest. It could lead to just this homogenization of our gene pool that causes all kinds of problems. So the only place to get new gene variants in association with these other issues related to fertility and fecundity might be to go into the past and sample these gametes. So I think that ubiquity of that in these close encounters probably has something to do with them helping themselves rather than doing something to us or modifying us. I think they're just trying to fix some problems that they're having in the future, mostly related to fertility.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
I will tell you, I think you're right on the button, Doctor, because I have friends who actually went to an infertility clinic, and actually that's how they had their baby. And the science, even in our primitive state right now, is absolutely amazing what they can do genetic-wise and how they do it. I mean, it just blew my mind. I want to take you, before we go to break, I want to take you real quick, and we'll pick it up after break. You say that the possibility of the pyramids may have been built by people from the future. What's your feeling of that?
No, I don't think so at all. I'm definitely not in the ancient aliens camp. Everything made at those times could easily be made by the people and the technology that they possessed all throughout the world. And I think the fact that we see the same shape with the Aztecs, the Olmecs, the Maya, the obviously the pyramids of Giza is just an aspect of building. I mean, you start making a structure, and if you build it with that pyramidal shape, it's much more solid. So yeah, I think it's just a coincidence that they built them that way. And yeah, there's nothing that indicates that there was any sort of outside influence.
Do you think that any time travelers would have brought some technology with them to try to influence ours?
Possibly, yeah. I mean, I think just as a product of being in the past, you're bound to interject something. When primitive people, I oftentimes like to express this idea in the context of us going back and how our ancestors would see us. Just as a product of being there, we would impart some information upon them. They would see our technology, our physical form, and possibly try to incorporate that into their own system. But I think if we're talking about a more technologically advanced form of humans from our future, going back to a more primitive period of our past, there's just such a disconnect between their understanding of technology that I don't think a lot of things could really be used. They certainly wouldn't be making anti-gravity devices just because they see it. With our period of technological evolution, I think we could start doing that. And if there was a crash in 1947 and we recovered these materials, the first thing we'd probably figure out is the anti-gravity aspects of it. And then if we realize this was a time machine, start to work on reverse engineering that and figuring out how that works. And then eventually, go on to make the thing that eventually crashes in 1947 in this causal loop scenario. So I don't think they would necessarily be imparting much, but they might have picked up something.
Yeah, okay. I think we have more questions on this topic, the time travel, going back and forth in time, but we have to take a quick break here. So this will be a great segment to get right back into after break. So hang tough with us, guys, and we'll see you here in a little bit, back with Michael Masters.
I don't want to talk about it.
I don't want to talk about it.
Families don't have to talk about everything, but they should talk about how to plan for an emergency. Get tips and resources to make your family's emergency plan.
Hey members, the new KGRA-DB app is now available on iOS and Android devices. Gain on-demand access to any KGRA-DB programming. Download any show directly to your mobile device to listen or watch on the go. Go to the App Store and search KGRA-DB.
Welcome to the new KGRA digital broadcasting website, thekgradb.com. Here you'll find great new content, including the KGRA Classics, great shows from our archives, you'll be able to see the show times and information so you can see what show is currently on air. The On Air Live button. So just go to this section and you'll be able to hear the show live with exceptional sound quality. We also have the Vault section. Make sure to subscribe to get access to great content and special features. We have the make content for our latest news and events, so make sure to sign up and you can be part of our forum. So make sure to check out the new KGRA digital broadcasting website, the KGRADB.com. We look forward to seeing you there, and we hope that you enjoy the new website.
Welcome back, everybody. So continuing on with this, welcome to Dr. Michael Masters. We're speaking with him. We're kind of getting into this ETs, us from the future time travel question. And I guess my question would be if the ETs, the Greys, are us in the future and they've come back and they're kind of manipulating us in small little ways. Do you think they're manipulating our DNA? And if so, why haven't they tried to, I don't know how to say this other than like help us more? Like things seem to be, we're kind of messy in our world right now. Are they just standoffish? Are they just observing? What do you think? You know, why do you think they're not interjecting more than they are?
Sorry, I just realized I was muted. It does seem to sort of be like a Star Trek sort of prime directive situation where they're observing but not overtly interjecting themselves into our reality yet. But I think in the future, if we do start to understand who they are and when they're coming from and why they're doing these things, there's really no reason why they couldn't become a part of our reality, live amongst us. Possibly some of us go to the future, the past, or whatever. I think it's just a matter of us reaching a level of societal and intellectual maturity. We probably seem very primitive to them still, especially with the way we treat the earth, the way we treat each other, the way we treat other animals on this planet. So actually, somebody just sent me a case study the other day where they explicitly stated that to an abductee, where they said we're not mature enough to know. They told him that they were from the future, but they're not making that widely known yet because we're not mature enough to really be able to process that. It really wasn't that long ago since the whole H.G. Wells fiasco. I think it was like the early 1900s. So if they're looking back over thousands of years, and we freaked out about an alien invasion about 100 years ago, you could see why they might want to avoid coming down and revealing themselves.
Right. You're talking about the on the radio.
Orson Welles.
Wells.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Yeah, no, that definitely wasn't our finest moment, I suppose. So I want to ask, because you talked about, whether or not they could be coming back and kind of integrating with us somehow. Let's just talk about the grandfather paradox, because I'm sure a lot of people watching have that in mind, being that if you were to go back and kill your grandparents before your parents are born, then poof, you don't exist kind of thing. But you talk in the book about not so fast, maybe there's a way around that. There have been some studies to prove that may not necessarily be true. Can you touch on that?
Yeah, I think I cite a study by Ringbauer et al., which came out actually just before I published the book, possibly in 2019. Some researchers in Australia who did some modeling with a particle physics study and showed that there really is no change. And in fact, the consistency paradoxes, like the grandfather paradox, really only exist as paradoxes if there's change, if the situation can involve change. And with regard to the Everett interpretation, the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics, you can have change in that sense because you have this decoherence, quantum decoherence, leads to the formation of a new timeline, essentially, in the multiverse theory. However, most physicists and philosophers advocate for the block universe, the block time model to explain space-time. And in that one, there is no change. Everything remains self-consistent. Igor Novikov, it's known as the Novikov self-consistency principle because of research that he and Kip Thorne and a number of other well-known physicists conducted throughout the 80s, 90s, and even into recent times. Richard Feynman as well. But the thing is, with block time, if you go back to the past, everything remains self-consistent because anything you do well in the past, you've already done prior to ever leaving. So that exists as an integrated moment with your future. You're not changing anything. You go back and just do the things you were always going to do in the first place. And then any change, if we like to think of it that way, has already manifested itself before you ever went back to do it. Everything remains highly integrated in this block universe model. So there really aren't consistency paradoxes because if you didn't kill your grandfather, you're never going to go back and do it. Another way of thinking of it is if you see if you go back to visit a younger version of yourself and you have a memory of seeing an older version, say 20, 30 years older, you know for certain that when you get to be that older individual 30 years after, you're going to go back and visit your younger self 30 years in the past. There's just that consistency is inherent to the system. So I mostly talk about the block universe theory in my book and kind of focus on that because it is the most conventionally understood way of understanding the universe. But in my new book, I do talk more about the Everett interpretation and the multiverse and how this time travel situation may play out in this interdimensional multiverse model versus the block time model.
That's absolutely amazing. Hey, Doctor, question for you. I may be way off base with this. Rendlesham Forest, I think it was Jim Pendleton.
Yeah, Jim Pendleton.
I think he believes that this was an alien craft. This was an actual time traveler. Mm-hmm. And that when he touched the craft, he received some certain message. And that's how he actually believed. Are you aware of that? And if so, could you explain it to the listeners?
Yeah, absolutely. So the 1980 Rendlesham Forest incident it involved John Burroughs, Jim Penniston, and some others, Kassenbeck. And he got closest to it. He had some people stay back because the radios weren't working, as they oftentimes don't in the presence of these highly electromagnetic objects. So he went up, talks about how time, space seemed to slow, seemed to change. It was like he was walking through water to get to this thing, but he touched some of the hieroglyphic-esque symbols on the outside and received this binary code, just a long series of zeros and ones. He felt compelled to write them down, wrote them down. Later, while doing an interview, somebody asked to see this journal where he documented all of these things he'd forgotten about the binary code some 20, 30 years later when he had this interview. And the reporter pointed out that binary code can be deciphered. So he had it deciphered, and it listed, I think, 8 different GPS coordinates of different places, important places throughout the past, which is interesting unto itself. But then also it said that they're the eyes of our eyes. Essentially, they come from 8,100 years, whether that's 8,100 years from now or BC AD, if they use that system still in the future. But yeah, he strongly believes, and there's a good case to be made, that he was interacting with a time machine, and they imparted this knowledge on him through this binary code.
Wow.
Yeah, I do too, because he doesn't know anything about binary codes. And the codes are, from what I understand, correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Masters, but the codes were pretty specific, weren't they?
Yeah, they were. I wrote about this a lot in my new book as well, because it's a fascinating case. And obviously, it focuses on time travel. I look at some cases that don't necessarily fit this model as well, just to sort of, bring some balance and see how other models might fit: extraterrestrial, obviously, interdimensional, ultra-terrestrial, simulation hypothesis, and others. But yeah, his is really fascinating. And if you hear him talk about this, it really seems like it happened. And yeah, he didn't really have any reason to make it up. It would be really hard to come up with this string of zeros and ones that meant anything, let alone that gives a specific date of their return and all of these important historic and prehistoric sites and GPS coordinates. So yeah, I find it to be a really interesting case.
What I find fascinating about that case, just one last statement, is that Pendleton actually now has a disability retirement from the military, but it's classified. I don't know if you heard that, Doctor.
No, that's interesting.
Yeah.
A couple thoughts on this. Speaking of binary codes and communicating with us, A, what do you think of crop circles? And number two, what was I going to ask? Go ahead and just talk about the crop circles. It just whoop.
Yeah, I don't know. I was writing about that recently too, and it'll probably piss some people off, to be honest. I don't know. I don't really get it. It doesn't make sense to me. Like, I understand crop circles in the sense that you have this spinning hot thing come down and leave an imprint in the grass. But as far as the really complex ones, what I argue in the book is that the most basic characteristics of communication are speaking or conveying something and then understanding. And if we don't understand what these symbols mean, there's nothing being communicated at all. So if seemingly they can speak our languages, in all of these different instances of close encounters, they speak either vocally or telepathically in the native language of the person that they're contacting. So why not just write out a message in the grass in the native language of the people that live in that region? Why make all of these convoluted symbols? I don't know. I'm skeptical about the whole thing.
Okay. Well, I have a couple questions. First of all, because you keep referring to the new book, I want to make sure that I've read the Identified Flying Objects book. Is there a new one that you're working on now, or is that the newer one?
No, that was my first book, Identified Flying Objects. It took 7 years to write. This one's a little, it's been a little more fun. It turns out there's almost as many references in this one as the first one, which I was surprised to see the other day. But no, this new one focuses more on the abduction phenomenon, sort of a John Mackian approach to the situation, looking at different case studies. One of them is the Jim Penniston case, as I mentioned, and some others. Actually, one of the first ones, I heard you talking about magnetic hydrogen propulsion before I came on. And one of the first cases is an accidental encounter where this miner comes across a UFO. A human comes out and says, "Can we take your water, please?" And even goes on to describe that they use it as part of their anti-gravity propulsion system, gives them a tour of the craft, shows them how this machine operates, it sort of goes along with what you were saying earlier. I'm sorry, I took a tangent there and forgot what the question was.
Well, I wanted to make sure that we knew which book we were referring to.
Right.
So
no, the new
one out?
Should be pretty soon, honestly. I just sent it to my editor yesterday, which felt really good to get that off the plate because I'm so behind on all my committees and work on campus. So once I get it back from the editor, it's just a matter of getting the audiobook recorded and then publishing. But it's a different take on the situation. The first book looked more at the human evolution, the time travel, the physics, the astrobiology. This one brings all of that in, but focuses on individual case studies and just the patterns. There's so many consistent patterns across these cases. So trying to understand them in the context of the best model or what makes the most sense from an abductive reasoning logic standpoint. But I think it's called the extratempestrial model and should be out in the next few months, I would think.
Wow, congratulations on that. That's awesome.
Thanks. Yeah, it's been fun to write.
Talking about abduction and like you said, patterns in so many of these cases, so much of egg taking, sperm taking. I wonder, we're so hard on ourselves, as humans are like, we're so stupid and we're going to blow ourselves up and we don't do anything right. But I wonder if we're genetically in a golden age right now. And as we kind of mentioned earlier, if that could decline. I mean, I've always wondered if they aren't just coming back to pinch what they need, just to keep themselves going or keep us going in the future. And potentially that's why they're wiping our memory as well. If they are, I do think there's some argument to maybe we wipe our own memories because it's a lot to handle. I don't know. Mm-hmm. I go back and forth on what is happening. Maybe both is happening. But yeah, if we could just talk about that genetically. I mean, if we're going where you think we have a lot going for us right now, and we need to appreciate it genetically what we have going on. Can you just speak to that?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And it's funny because I was literally just thinking about that yesterday. How if we are moving toward this this trend of reduced fertility, fecundity, genetic homogenization, possibly we screw something up with CRISPR, trying to engineer some cure for disease that becomes heritable and screws up our genome in the future. There's a lot of things that could happen technologically, but also just based on current trends, it seems that we're going down a path where there could be genetic problems in the future. So yeah, in a sense, that would kind of make us in a golden age. And if they are coming back to sample gametes for themselves in their own past, you would expect them to come to a point where they can get the most for their money, essentially, which would be closest to them, but still where we had enough genetic diversity that we could add new gene variants to their somewhat stagnant gene pool in the human future.
Doctor, about the crop circles, I have to agree with you. Probably 90%, probably 95% are garbage. I think there's just people out there with a piece of wood and a rope and a lot of them just stomping around in the middle of the night. However, a researcher by the name of Jennifer Stein, who's well respected in ufology and stuff, has actually sent me pictures of insects fused into the actual wheat. And I was wondering if you'd be interested in if you wanted those pictures and stuff of that nature to have them examined.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll admit, it's always good to acknowledge things that we don't know a lot about. And I haven't studied the crop circle phenomenon to the extent that I probably should in making a statement that's so skeptical about it. So yeah, absolutely. I would love to expand my knowledge base on this. And I recently met with a researcher who's here in Montana. His name's Richard O'Connor. He just published a book about the nuclear annihilation aspect of these abduction reports and contactee reports. And he makes a case about a crop circle that appeared right before a nuclear meltdown that happened somewhere. It was somehow averted. I don't remember exactly what happened, but it was a pretty convincing argument that they were trying to communicate something, again, poorly, obviously, but that there was this very tight-knit correlation between when the crop circle appeared and when this nuclear problem happened. So I don't know. I guess I'm still open, but yeah, I'm with you. I think the majority are probably hoaxes.
My question to you now is, do you think some of these people from the future are maybe like trying to just not anything specific, but just like tourists or kind of like hanging out to see what you get these photos and I think some of them are garbage. And I want to ask you, the people walking around in the 1920s with cell phones or some stuff like that. Now, I don't take a lot of credence into that, but what's your thought about that, of these photos and things that are showing up?
Yeah, I mean, if we can go back into the past somewhat soon, and I think there's a lot of indicators that it's probably only going to be in the next 100 or possibly 200 years when we start doing this, based on the form described in so many of these encounters. So yeah, if we do look like the people in the past, in a pretty recent period in the past, I mean, we could all probably pull off going back, 100 years, get some different clothes, talk a little bit differently, but if we look like them and could act like them and talk like them, then there's really no reason we couldn't sort of play around a little bit and check some things out. But to the first part of your question, I absolutely think some of the phenomenon is tourism, and it makes sense why people would want to do that. If you can make all of this money taking people up into space, imagine how much money you could make taking them back through time. And I actually make an argument in this new book that perhaps that's what helps drive the technology. It may be the private sector. It may not just be governments that are conducting this research into the past or conducting these gamete extractions for whatever purpose it serves them genetically, but it may be an aspect of time tourism and the profit potential that could be made that drives the development of this technology.
That is so interesting. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So if you think that our evolution is taking us towards, and it seems like with Elon Musk and Neuralink that we're destined to perhaps split as you know, some of us will want to merge with AI and others might want to keep, you know, organic, I guess, let's say, you know, what do you think about us merging with AI, and how does that play into these ETs in the future?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely seems, it seems like it could be an important part of the future. The fact that we're already doing it and we're making these robots in our own image, even, obviously not all are, but that's kind of the main driving force, is to recreate ourselves. Obviously the consciousness aspect of it's going to take some time to figure out, but as far as making our physical form in a robot, it's definitely something that we're doing now, and we'd expect to keep doing that in the future. And as the technology gets better, maybe they'll become indistinguishable from us. Maybe part of the phenomenon is our droids that we create, these human automatons that come back with us and carry out abductions, or, you know, maybe take on some of the more dangerous roles associated with this capturing of people in the past.
Right. I know when Dr. Leo Sprinkle put me under, that's something that came out under hypnosis, was that they became such well-oiled machines and merged with AI that they were looking for more, you know, spirituality and creativity to come back into their being. So because if humans aren't anything else, we're very creative, right? With music and art and just emotion, we're so extreme. We can go from one extreme to the other extreme, and that's what came through. And I find that kind of interesting, and it made a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's a lot of indications that beyond just the AI aspect of it or any brain-to-brain interfacing we might use, Neuralink type things, that our consciousness clearly expands tremendously between now and whatever point or points in the future they're coming back from, just indicated by their compassion, their empathy, in most cases. At least there are exceptions, but the ability to communicate telepathically, clearly that's some aspect of our brain that we haven't unlocked yet, that hasn't quite developed to the point where we can do that. Some people are more able to do it than others. Interestingly, many people who claim to have been a part of some hybridization program, or they had a grandparent who was abducted and they have these abilities. I've met quite a few of these people. That they're much more tapped into this than average everyday people. I think there's going to be some aspect of just our brain itself, or our consciousness, our mind, beyond the physical form of the brain that evolves over the next hundreds, thousands of years as well.
God, I have so many questions. I'm sitting here looking at my list, like, where do I go next? I need like 3 hours for this. Okay, let's go here. If this future theory is true and they are coming back, many people would say, well, at least we know we still exist. We haven't blown ourselves up. But that doesn't mean that we nailed our future. And who knows, maybe half of us do end up blowing ourselves up. Maybe we're forced off planet. Could they even be coming back to take samples, to literally recreate Earth as we used to know it on another planet? Maybe that's the scariest thing, is they're able to come here to our time period, is because they're taking what they need to recreate Earth somewhere else. Have you thought about that at all?
Yeah, in fact, I think you've gone into the future and read my next book, because it's another thing that I talk about a lot.
Surprise!
Yeah, you're kind of freaking me out here a little bit. I do talk about that, because it's one of the things that got John Mack so interested in this phenomenon, is these recurrent dreams and people being shown images on board these craft, being told directly about environmental degradation, cataclysms, warning them of nuclear war. And for a long time, I've heard that same thing. You know, a good friend of mine read the book and then said, I'd always been afraid about an alien invasion. And now, you know, why would they ever attack us if we are their ancestors and their existence is entirely dependent on our survival? Which is true to some extent, but it only takes some of us to carry on in that future. And it's sort of a bleak outlook, but we could still have some sort of cataclysm, but still a certain percentage of the population makes into the future and goes on to rebuild civilization and eventually develop time travel technology. I'm much more hopeful. I'm a bit of an optimist. So I think it won't happen. You know, people have been claiming the end is nigh for thousands of years, really. So our generation, you know, seemingly we could actually wipe ourselves out. We have the technology to do it, unfortunately, but I don't know if they would let it happen if they are stakeholders in the future of this planet, and they can shut down these nukes as they demonstrated at the Mino Air Force Base in one of the Dakotas. I think it's North Dakota, and the Malmstrom Air Force Base here in Montana. Maybe they're just doing a trial run, make sure they can shut them down if we ever start getting an itchy finger and decide to press the button.
Yeah, I hope they can shut us down.
Yeah, me too. That sucks. I don't want to live in a nuclear wasteland.
Mm-mm.
Well, Dr. Masters, you certainly got me going with nightmares tonight. I can tell you that, because now you're making me think, what do you think the idea is? Could they weaponize time travel? Now you got me thinking, can you weaponize time travel? Because you know somebody's thinking about that.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the main drivers of technology and has been since we started making weapons, essentially. But yeah, the Copper Age, the Bronze Age, the Iron Age, the Gunpowder Age, the Nuclear Bombs Age, a lot of what drives our technological development is war and the competition that comes from fighting each other, however we define the other. So I don't know. I mean, I think at this point, if there was some sort of time war scenario playing out, or someone was trying to weaponize these craft to do something, or, you know, take back of AR-15s to give to Native Americans so that Europeans never, you know, took over this continent or whatever. There's a lot of scenarios that could unfold, but we don't really see that. It doesn't really line up with this sort of prime directive aspect of their interactions with us. So I certainly wouldn't doubt it, because it's kind of been the status quo for humans throughout the past. But I don't know. I don't think, at least thus far, there's anything that indicates that.
So, so some of us evolve into ET in the future, and it's us in the future coming back. But do you believe that there's other beings or races or civilizations out there that are not connected to humanity or humans at all? And what?
Yeah, I do. I definitely think that there's bound to be life on other planets, and it certainly could have taken a trajectory that favored intelligence and being able to possibly even leave their planet and go to others. However, I don't, there's just so many unique things that went into our own evolution on this planet that I don't think they would ever look anything like us or be so similar in their behavior, their knowledge of our language, their ability to breathe our air, the technology that they possess. So even beyond just the bipedalism in the humanoid form for the majority of these alien beings, there's just a lot of other things that are consistent with ourselves and our culture. So yeah, I definitely think they're out there. I don't know, maybe we're seeing them, maybe it's a part of the phenomenon, but I think the majority of it's most likely us.
Are the reptilians connected to us? I mean, is that an example of something that might not be?
Possibly. I mean, I got the privilege of talking to Whitley Strieber. He invited me on his show, I think last year, 2 years ago. And we were sort of toying with this idea that maybe it's a post-human civilization where we die out and reptiles and insects who clearly have staying power on this planet in a very, very distant future go on to develop technology and backward time travel technology. And that being farther away from where they are in time, we see them less often, which is maybe why it's only 5%. But yeah, we were kind of speculating that it could still be time travel just from a very distant point in our evolutionary future and a post-human future.
Well, yeah. So let's say, I mean, we hear numbers all the time. There's 57 different races visiting us, or what, and I'm always like, how do you know? I mean, how do we even put a number on it? But what if it was simply us in the future, but at very, very different times? That's something I think is worth thinking about. I have a question. Okay, so a lot of researchers focus so much on the craft and how they can maneuver. How does time travel play into how these craft could maneuver? Like, are they really going as fast as we think they're going, or is it our human perception and how time travel, could make it appear like, they're blinking in and out? You know what I mean? Can you talk about that some?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of characteristics of these craft, the way they move in the sky, the way they are transmedium, can move through air, water, that seem to indicate that they create a sort of space-time bubble around them, that they're manipulating the rate at which time passes in that vicinity, which, in addition to making it look like they have these instantaneous accelerations and decelerations, may give them the ability to travel through time. And the very common characteristic of them just appearing and disappearing in the sky would seem to be an indication of that. Because if you have something disappear from your 3 dimensions of space, it indicates it moved through our only other known dimension of time, the 4th dimension. So yeah, I think it could explain the G-forces. It was estimated that the Tic Tac, based on the SCU's data, Kevin Newth and Robert Powell, Richard Hoffman, a number of people really broke down what was happening and came up with a G-force of 12,500 Gs for this maneuver that this thing did. So obviously anything would be crushed on the inside of that. But then you have all of these abductees who talk about being taken to the moon and back, or traveling in these craft as they're moving, but they feel no G's at all. They feel no acceleration or deceleration whatsoever, which again indicates that they're manipulating the speed of time in the general vicinity of that craft. So what we see as a 12,000 G maneuver may feel like 1 G or less than that to them in their reference frame, I guess.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Doctor, have we, do you think we're doing time travel now? Do you think we're actually working on it? There's a theory out there about Project Looking Glass. I mean, obviously you probably heard of it, but are we anywhere getting toward that? I was told, and I heard you say the same thing, that probably within 100 years or so, we're going to be able to do it. Is that correct? So we must be working on it now.
It's only recently that I started to think that. Before I really got into the weeds of the abduction phenomenon, I mostly just focused on these grays, it's sort of what everybody talks about. And they seemingly have traits that are characteristic of many thousands of years in the future. And honestly, I don't think Peniston's 8,000 years is too far off from when we might start to get traits that look more like that. The ones with the really big heads and childlike features and short stature, I think, is probably more than that, 15, 20,000 maybe. But yeah, based on a number of accounts where it's a very human person using technology that doesn't seem too far off from what we currently have, it could be pretty soon. And honestly, if we start to kind of understand if this is correct, and obviously there's still an element of doubt in my own mind, as there always should be with any theory. But if this is correct and it becomes conventionally understood, or at least conventionally considered among the population, and we start to talk about time, and we start to talk about all of the situations that could unfold if we did contact ourselves in different periods, there's really, like I said at the top of the show, there's really no reason why they couldn't say, well, it was us all along. And this is why we did it. And this is how we did it. And that's it. We just live amongst people from different times in the same way that we live amongst people from different geographic regions and different geographic races. Today, we could have time races in the same way.
Okay. So here's a question. So you're talking about how different we could be. What about how how similar we could be, moving towards a monochromatic, monolinguistic future. It's easy for me to visualize that. But you've also talked about, we have to factor in wild cards, like volcanic eruptions that scatter us or whatever. We just have no idea. It's not just up to us where we're going, right? So can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, and that's one of the big challenges in talking about this with academics in my own field is there's this taboo of teleology that we can't say that there's this one direction that we're going, or just because these things in the past have occurred, it's always going to happen in the future. And I certainly recognize that, and I talk about it in my first book. But if we are seeing members of our future who are coming back, it's not that we're projecting anything. We're observing, we're documenting, we're studying these people in the state that they exist in the future. We're not trying to say that, and in fact, I go out of my way to avoid this in my writing and my research, is not to speculate about what will happen between now and then. I hear this all the time from people. We'll live in space, so that's why our eyes get big and we have to wear the contact lenses for the radiation, or we'll live underground, that's why our skin gets gray. Who knows? Nobody can know. And I don't speculate about those things, but just based on past trends that have endured throughout the history of our species, it's likely those will continue regardless of where we live or what happens, if there's an asteroid or nuclear war or a volcano or whatever. So I think it's just a matter of being on track to become them, and what we see in them, regardless of how it happened, is just an aspect of all of those things that take place between now and then.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to throw you a curveball here, Doctor. Hope you don't mind. What about two civilizations? Do you think there could be two civilizations here on Earth right now?
I mean, I guess if the multiverse is the reality of the situation, there could be some sort of parallel universe that runs somewhat tangential to our own, and you could cross back and forth between it. But no, just if there was any current civilization that was at the same level of complexity that exists in the one we're familiar with, I think we would almost certainly see it somewhere, at least in the archaeological record, especially if they move from place to place. And there's not really an indication that we are ever at a phase in our cultural evolution that was this level of sophistication. So I'm skeptical of that.
The only reason I say that is because now a lot of sightings are over water, going into the water, around the water. And it may be that the time travelers are just looking at our oceans to see what's going on with that as the same thing. But there are people out there that think that there's another civilization living on this planet, reptilians or fishmen or whatever. I don't know.
Well, I definitely agree that if we are coming back in time, wouldn't want to have to make that trip every time. And there's things we would need in these different periods that we're working in that would be better built and stay in those times. For instance, these massive fertility labs, as I call them, from a number of reports with the incubators and the extractions taking place, that's something that you could build in that time that's used for that purpose, and then hide it in the ocean, hide it on the dark side of the moon. I've sort of come around to the idea that there's a base on the moon. I know it sounds crazy to say, but so many people describe going to it and being at this base. And it's really sus that we haven't gone to the moon since like the 70s. Like, why is that? It'd be so easy for us to do now, but why have we just sort of forgotten that this thing's there, which was cause for such fanfare the first time we stepped foot on it? So I don't know. I think if there is another intelligent civilization that's sort of hiding out in our oceans or operating on the dark side of the moon, that it's still probably us from the future. They just took up residency in our time because it's easier.
That is very suspect that we haven't been back to the moon. Speaking of a multiverse, what do you make of the simulation, that we're all a simulation, like we're just a game? What do you make of that theory?
I'm definitely open to the idea. There's anecdotally, and I guess a lot of people have experiences that sort of make you think, that's a little weird that happened, a little too coincidental. And certainly those things could just be coincidences. If we have enough experiences throughout our lives, some things are just gonna happen because of the law of large numbers. But yeah, I don't know. I've read a little bit by Nick Bostrom and others who have sort of evolved the idea, and I'm open to the idea, but something still feels very biological about our existence, and that could certainly be recreated in a computer simulation. But there's other issues too. One of the arguments is that if we evolve to the point where we can run computer simulations, it's a very low probability that we would happen to be that one that went into the future to do that amongst the millions of simulations that are run. And that argument seems a little illogical to me, but I don't know. There must be some people, assuming they looked like us, if they created us in their own image in this simulation, that made it to that point in the future where they could do that. So maybe it's where we're at, where we're going. I don't know. I think it's an interesting question.
Yeah. So you mentioned earlier, you called it time tourism, and now that's got my mind racing. If you had the chance to time travel, if I gave you one chance and I said it's going to be safe, you can blend in, you won't get caught, and you'll come back safely with some answers, but you have to pick future or past. I'm curious what you would pick and why, what time period.
Yeah, I mean, I've always been interested in the future. I guess I wouldn't have gone down this rabbit hole if I wasn't. So yeah, I would want to see what the future looks like. And I think I would probably I can only go to one time.
Yeah, let's have fun and force you to pick just one.
All right. I think I would probably go to the year 5000.
Whoa. What do you hope you might see?
A utopian civilization, void of war and famine and hatred of the other.
I like that. Will you take me with you?
I think it's called Disneyland right now.
Yeah, no, I don't want a fake one. I want a real one where there's a sense of empathy that's shared by all. And it seems if these are time travelers, it seems that that's kind of where we're going. They often espouse this sense of love and compassion, despite doing horrible things to us in many cases, which I think is sort of needs of the many outnumber the needs of the few situation. But it kind of seems like we're going that direction. I think by the year 5000, we'd probably be there.
Oh, God, I hope so. Doctor, the producer, Amanda, wanted to ask you about the butterfly effect. What is I'm be honest with you, I never heard it before. So that's my question to you. What the hell is the butterfly effect?
Yeah, it's the idea that if you go back in time, even simple things that you do have an effect that then sends ripples through the future and causes problems, causes changes. And again, these situations only matter if you look outside the block universe, because there is no change that's allowed in the block time model. But the idea is that you could alter your timeline and you go back to the future and everything would be different. And this plays out a lot in a number of TV shows and movies, and it's sort of a misnomer. It's not the reality of the situation if the block universe model is correct, which it makes sense and it's adhered to by most who study time. But yeah, that would be sort of the multiverse model, the decoherence and the separate timeline situation, where that could be a factor. You go back and you step on a bug 10,000 years ago and you come back and everybody's dead or whatever.
Yeah, or you go 5,000 years in the future and accidentally blow something up and then you can't come back and visit yourself anymore. No, okay, my cat is going crazy. Where are cats 5,000 years in the future? Because this one is knocking off all of my pens.
Yeah.
And knocking everything off my desk. Why? Do you have any idea why cats do that? You've studied living creatures on this planet for a long time. Why do cats do that?
Yeah, I'm not sure they ever really signed on to this whole domestication thing. Dogs went all in. You can't make a dog not like you. But yeah, I don't know. Cats seem to sort of operate on their own rules. I kind of respect that about them.
Yeah, they can be a little jerky. Okay, so I have a question. Speaking of being jerky, I am dying to know how your research has been received by other people in ufology circles. I know I've seen you on a lot of lecture circuits and at symposiums, but let's face it, the very thing that you're suggesting, it could blow everybody else's theories completely out of the water. And I know you're not saying I have the only truth here, but I'm just wondering if people been like, yeah, right on. That's kind of mind expanding, or wait a minute, what the hell? You're going to ruin everything I've spent years researching.
Yeah, we deal with that a lot in academia, and I'd like to say that we understand, and we do understand, but we don't always adhere to this. But theories are supposed to be replaced. They're supposed to evolve as our knowledge grows and as evidence becomes available. So it should be fine if there's something that maybe is more parsimonious to consider. But yeah, you're right. Much like in academia, you also have dogma. You also have people who strongly adhere to some notion, regardless of how much evidence there is to support it or not. And yeah, it's funny. I sort of expected that I would get all this backlash from my academic colleagues, and the UFO community would say, oh, okay, that makes sense. And it was the opposite. My colleagues have been extremely supportive, and many in the UFO community have as well. But initially, there was definitely some pushback from the very first talk I gave in Oregon at a MUFON meeting. And then I presented the 50th anniversary symposium for MUFON too in Irvine, California. And there was definitely some haters, to say the least.
Yeah. Yeah, I can imagine that.
I was actually there when you gave that lecture. I thought it was phenomenal.
Oh, thank you.
And people walked out going, "Holy crap!"
Yeah,
this is really good. This is really a great, refreshing thing to think about.
Yeah, and I still have a little note from what somebody wrote, the Hotel Irvine, on a little Hotel Irvine scratch pad, that it was their favorite UFO presentation ever. I kept it by my desk for motivation. So yeah, it wasn't just, it was well received, and I think people enjoyed the talk. It was mostly the other people who are in this field weren't as receptive to this idea. And the idea has been around for a long time, really since the 40s is the earliest I could trace it back to. So it shouldn't be anything that causes that knee-jerk reaction, but I don't know. I've got thick skin. I've dealt with stuff like that my entire life, in a place where it's much harsher, even in the scientific community. So it didn't bother me. And honestly, I feel like over the last 3 years, it's changed a lot. And there's much more openness to other ideas and interpretations than there was even in 2019.
Yeah, true.
And, with that theory in mind, with everything you're saying, because it really is an amazing talk that you had, and an amazing theory that you have. But you keyed on something, that you actually believe these time travelers may have been the ones over our nuclear silos, shutting down, turning on, giving us a message. Can you give any type of example where you think they actually interceded besides that, where they said, you know what, they had to have been there to have, any part of history that you may have seen where they said, you know what, this they had to have been here to do that. There's some extra force that, did that.
That's an interesting question. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, off the top of my head, I can't really think of anything that may have been something that could only have been done. I mean, I guess there's some instances in the Old Testament of the Bible that seem to involve things that are commonly reported in UFO encounters, like levitation, for instance, is very common. I think Ezekiel probably saw a UFO like most people think, obviously in the Nation of Islam, which largely founded their religion around that interaction. But yeah, I don't know. I guess if I sat down and thought about it, I might be able to come up with something. But off the top of my head, I can't really come up with anything. I think the nukes are probably the best example.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
I think that's scary enough.
Yeah,
sure.
But also good. I don't know. I see it as somewhat calming that they care, and they didn't set them off. They did the opposite. They shut them down. I actually had the opportunity of giving a talk up in Lewiston, Montana, which is the place right next to the Malmstrom Air Force Base. And it was so cool to interact with these people who had a history with that particular site, and some of whom, had new people who were there. And yeah, I don't know, that it kind of gives me hope. Honestly, it indicates that they have the ability to intervene if needed. Because again, I'm not a fan of living in a dystopian wasteland.
Well, and we've only got like 4 minutes left. This has gone a lot faster than I wanted it to, but I wonder if at some point they should have shut us down on something and they didn't, and they maybe owe a big debt to the universe. I mean, maybe the universe is, maybe there's some big galactic council saying you better go back and clean up some of your messes.
Yeah, I've wondered too if the multiverse is true, maybe they did avoid a catastrophe by doing that. Maybe I also wonder if even if it's the block universe, if they saw something that may have caused a problem, obviously with their more advanced technology and compared to all of our analog crap from the 50s and 60s and 70s when we had these nukes, maybe they saw something wrong. And in both of these cases and other cases where they shut down the missiles, they avoided some sort of catastrophe, not because they know the future and they know what happened, but simply because they were monitoring it and knew better than us that something was about to fail, and kept us from accidentally nuking ourselves.
Yeah.
Right. It sounds like they let us only go so far, like let them go to the edge right to the edge of the cliff. And then they were like, but we're not going to let them jump.
Yeah. I mean, we got to learn from our own mistakes too, but with something like destroying this planet, I don't know if, you really want to take that chance.
So we have a couple minutes left. What do you have on your plate for this next year? Are you going to be at any conferences, or congratulations on your book again. I'm excited. When that comes out, we can all get that.
I don't know. It should be a pretty productive year. I'm up for sabbatical. I'm actually applying for sabbatical tomorrow. So if I get that, I'll have more time to do a lot of things planned. Been doing a lot of TV stuff lately, documentaries and things like that. And maybe if it gets bought by the networks, I'll have my own show that kind of looks at this whole time travel model in much more depth. So I've been working with a production company to hopefully get that out there. Just trying to keep on keeping on, keep pushing the idea and talking to people and evolving my understanding of the phenomenon and this model. And I think with sabbatical there'd be a lot of opportunities to do that. I'm also still involved in my normal research with human evolution and ocular characteristics, vision in the functional sense. So I'm still kind of doing both, but definitely been focusing on the UFO question more.
Yeah, well, gosh, I wish you great luck with that pilot. I've learned so much today. Thanks for teaching me anyway. I didn't know about the block theory, and it makes a lot of sense to me. So I've learned so much from you today, and I hope that you'll come back on when your new book comes out. We really appreciate you being here with us today. It's been an interesting, deep conversation, and I'm like Chris. I'm going to be laying in bed tonight just thinking, wow, all the different scenarios. But it's deep down into the rabbit hole when you get into this whole time.
Doctor, is there ice cream in the future? Because I don't want to go. I don't want to go there.
There's free ice cream for everyone.
All right, there we go.
We're all
I would not live in a future without ice cream. I love that stuff. But yeah, no, it's been great talking to you as well. I really loved all these questions, and it's a great conversation. So I appreciate you having me on.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Hope you'll come back on. Thank you to all our listeners for being here with us tonight. Hope you all enjoyed it as well. Thanks always to Bill Skywatcher, our producer, and Amanda Curran, our co-producer. Thank you, Chris DePerno and Katie Cook. And I hope you all have a fabulous rest of your night. And we'll see you next week with, who do we have? Deb Rugney. I think I pronounced it right this time, Rugney. So we'll see you next Thursday with Deb. Have a good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.